Hi folks, what an amazing time to be a sim racer. We've had, just recently, such good stuff going on. We've had massive updates. We had a massive update to Assetto Corsa Competizione by Kunos, which is feeling just great. A massive physics update to that. We've had an update to R Factor 2 from Studio 397, which has brought the track loading times down by a lot. And that's an improvement for all of us. But also, of course, we had the massive update to Automobilista 2 by Reza Studios, which was, of course, update 1.3.0.0. That update fundamentally changed the sim in terms of changes to the driveline, adding elasticity to the driveline, tyre physics changes for all of the cars, and also differential. The sticky diff problem has been eradicated, and every single vehicle in the sim has been affected either by the char changes, the diff changes, or the driveline changes, and it's just so fundamentally changed the sim. In fact, it's been such a massive change. If you didn't notice the change, then you wouldn't notice a punch in the face from an angry Mike Tyson. So maybe you ought to take up boxing. But I'm sure you have if you've tried it before and after. I'm sure you have. Anyway, we are now on update 1.3.1.0, which brings more physics changes, more updates, and also new content. We have part 2 of Racing USA, which brings us a bunch of American open wheelers and also 2 American tracks, Watkins Glen and also Cleveland. And look at this, look what they've done. Because, of course, Part 1 and Part 2 of Racing USA is paid DLC. You have to buy it on top of the game. However, they are allowing any owners of AMS2 to try that DLC out for free over this weekend. So, yes, even if you don't own this content, it is available to you over this weekend. On Monday, it reverts back to paid content. So, to carry on using any of the Racing USA bits and pieces, you will have to buy it. But anyway, what an amazing company Reza are. Bravo, guys. So, we're going to go and have a look at some of this lovely new DLC and tracks. And obviously, that's the big stuff. That's the big news. So, all of these lovely American open wheelers and, of course, the new tracks like Watkins Glen here. However, just before we do that, I want to have a quick look at some of the smaller changes, because I found some interesting things reading through the patch notes, and to do that we're going to have to go to Bathurst in the Super V8. Now, there have been lots of changes to this car over the past several patches and updates to the game, but I noticed in this last update there was a change, I think, to the suspension, but more importantly to me, there was a change in the front splitter. And this car used to have a horrible problem where the front end would lift. As you go up the hill here, on your first major straight after Hell Corner at Bathurst, the front end used to lift. Used to probably lift off the ground. Well, I saw this note on the front splitter and I thought, front splitter, that's going to hold the front of the car down. I wonder if they've sorted that out. Let's have a look, shall we? So here we go. I'm finding this car is handling it. I know a lot of people have problems with the handling of this car, but I'm finding it feels so much better after the changes to the driveline, tyres, and general physics. But this is what I'm talking about. So here is the crest. We're going over it. Foot hard down, and you heard sort of the tension relieved from the driveline there as we went over the crest, but you didn't see the front end lift. So let's just have a quick look at that on the replay. So we'll stick that up to times 10 speed to get to that part of the track as quickly as possible, and we shall play it, but we're going to play it in slow motion all the way down to times 0.25. Take off the interface. Look, there you go. Can you see as it goes over the crest there? There's no ridiculous lift. The car sort of rises up, comes back down again, but the tyres don't come off the ground. There's no ridiculous lift. That may seem like a really small thing, but to me it it's just one little thing that makes everything a little bit more more realistic, if you like. And point in case, by the way, now, just quickly before we move on, I'm going to take you quickly to Nürburgring Nordschleife, and we're going to pick ourselves... Oh, gone past it already. We're going to pick ourselves the Cadillac DPI here, because although the Cadillac hasn't had any sort of splitter updates in this last patch, the Cadillac had the same problem. In fact, dramatically so. There's a crest here at Nürburgring, and it's quite early on during the track, so don't worry, we don't have to drive around the whole of the Nordschleife to get to it. But it used to lift there, and this car has got a hell of a lot of downforce, and it just basically shouldn't do. So, just in case you've missed this improvement that's happened over the past 3 or 4 updates, I'm just going to point that out. So, like the V8, it no longer has this kind of unrealistic lift to the front end when it goes over the crest. And if you see real life videos of cars like this going around the Nordschleife with this amount of aero, they really shouldn't lift. So here we are. This is our straight. We've got our first crest here, but the main one is this one coming up here. And so you can hear the body rising up there, you can hear the drive line, stress is changing a bit, but there was no ridiculous front end lift. And just to exemplify that further, quickly speed up our video. Okay, here we go. Let's slow the motion down a bit, take away the interface, and there you go. No ridiculous lift. So, there's a couple of little things I really like about the current and recent updates. And these very small, subtle changes can be massive. Another thing I really like, and that's to do with this update, what they've done with this update is they have added, now we've got plenty of information here on the car on our UI screen. It tells us if it's rear-wheel drive, what kind of engine it has, what kind of tyres, and also if it has DRS, electronics, that sort of thing. But now they've added engine displacement, they've added weight distribution, and also wheelbase. And I love that. It's brilliant, because the more, if you're going out for a bit of a jolly in any sim, and you get a load of information about the car, the more information the better, because knowing what the wheelbase is and weight distribution is will give you an idea, give you some idea of what to expect when you take the car out on track. So I absolutely love that. So let's go and find ourselves another little change that's happened, and we're going to, for this one, we're going to go to, where are we now? Spa. And we're going to take ourselves a McLaren, because I was testing around Spa, and for this test, very importantly, we want a track which is already wet, so we're going to use our live track preset of wet, and we want to keep it wet, so we're going to have some rain. I was testing with this car recently, before the update, at this track in the wet, with a wet preset, and I found out something fundamentally kind of wrong. I found that on slick tyres, you had pretty much the same amount of grip as you did on wets. And I thought, oh, there's a problem. However, with this update, Reza, oh, no, we don't want to do that. We want to go in here and we want to change our tyres to wets. Reza have changed the amount of grip and drop-off of grip between slick and wet tyres. So we're going to go out on wets first of all, to show you what I mean. Little bit of wheel spin as we come out, not too much. Fairly well under control. I've got my ABS and traction control turned off for this little test. Out we come. 35 miles an hour, nearly out of that right-hander out of the pits there. And we're going to enter Eau Rouge at about 140. Slow down as we go around it. Oh, hard on the brakes, 95 miles an hour. We got around it just fine. Little bit wayward. Let's see how it deals with these tighter corners up here. So 149 miles an hour, slowing down to about 73, 66 miles an hour, coming out at about 55 miles per hour. How are we going to deal with this corner here? 64 miles an hour, 67, 72, little bit of back end wobble. We are on wets, but it is a wet track, so we should expect that. And getting around here at about 57 miles an hour on the exit. How we'll do here? Entering at 68 miles an hour, keeping it roughly there. And we're doing okay under acceleration. How are we going to do here at double gauche? Slowing all the way down to 74 miles an hour, but we are exiting, let's have a look now, at 105. Everything seems to be as you'd expect. So, now previously, you could change over to slick tyres, and you'd think slick's in the wet. That's not going to be very good, is it? And you'd have roughly the same amount of grip. So now let's just double check. Yeah, we are on our slick tyres, and very slippery on the exit there. Lots of slipping around, under accelerating there, and oh god, she's locking up, not braking very well. And we came out of there at just over 35 miles an hour last time. We were about 28 there, and still, and we're all over the place as we go down the straight, as you can see. Entering at about 140, and I'm going to slow down. And oh! All over the place. So there's a lot less grip there, and I'm really happy to see that. It makes, you know, it gives you a proper reason to change your tyres. Braking distances are much longer. Entering here at 66 miles per hour, slowing right down. Oh, no, yeah. 42 miles an hour there. And yeah, she's all over the place. How are we going to do here? And she just wants to go to the outside of the track. Yeah, not gripping very well at all. Let's just take it down to double gauche, because I think I've proven my point. The other thing is you can see the tyres are wearing a lot quicker as well. And I'm braking, and she's just taking ages to stop. So that's so much better. So much better. Okay. So there's three little things. The lift with the V8. What they've done with the UI there. Those updated bits of information. The wet tyres as well. Much better. Much better. So. Oh yeah. And it doesn't end there either. This is another little change. But this is a massive one for me personally. For this change, we're going to want the GT1s, and we're going to want them at Silverstone Historic 1991. I have wanted to race these cars at this track ever since they brought out the historic Silverstone. I love the new Silverstone, but I've got a real thing for the old Silverstone, because the old Silverstone 1991 there was a version of it that used to be an R Factor, the original R Factor by ISI, not R Factor 2 by Studio 397. And I used to race that a lot. Love the track. So I was really overjoyed when it came to Automobilista 2. However, I have not been able to race anything like, say, the GT1s or maybe some of the Formula cars there, because of their very low ground clearance and very stiff suspension. Because what would happen before, if I tried to run a race here, basically, especially with the fact that I like to race with full damage on 200%, I'd lose about half of the field by the end of the first lap, because this version of Silverstone has quite raised curbs, and the AI do like to ride the curbs a bit. Unfortunately, with cars like this, they would just hit these curbs and fling up into the air and ping off all over the track, causing massive accidents. And I read through the patch notes for this last update, and it said that they adjusted the AI suspension parameters on a whole bunch of cars to help them deal with getting over curbs. So, like I said, I just couldn't race this track before, and I'm going to have to make another whole video of a race with these cars at this track, because these cars from the 90s, the track's from the 90s. I'm overjoyed, basically, because, well, let me show you. Now I can race these cars at this track. Watch this. Here we go. Now, literally, by the first, you're going to see probably... Oh, actually, none of the cars have ridden the inside curb there, but you will see, most likely, after the first few corners. There you go. There's one riding the curb already. But it hasn't pinged off, caused a massive accident and a load of broken cars. Now, this slalom here was one of the worst culprits for it. And look, they're all through safely. We've got 32 cars on track. Before, there would have already been a massive accident. Oh, and by the way, I have to say, and I know I could say this about pretty much any car in the sim at the moment, because they all feel better, but after update 1.3.0.0 and now to 3.1, they just feel fantastic. They really do. But I'm absolutely over the moon. This is what Reza do. They bring stuff out. If there's a slight problem with it, they refine it. And I wondered, would they ever get this one done? And they have. And I've got to tell you, they've made my day. They really have. Now, this is another area where there would be massive accidents due to those slightly raised curbs. And look, we're all through safely. 32 cars on track. Are we going to see any of them pit? Maybe there's been a bit of contact somewhere, but there's been no massive crashes. And look at that. No problems. None of them have had to make a pit stop due to damage from a massive crash. I am over the moon. Reza, thank you from me and anyone else who has run into this problem. So that's just another little problem that has been resolved, and another track that I can really properly enjoy. I will make a video of a race there with the GT1s. I've got to do it now. Right, so onwards. Now let's have a look at some of the sparkly new content. So we want to go to Watkins Glen. We're all the way down here. Oh, by the way, I love this about the UI, that you can either choose the track by location, by country, by grade. It's brilliant. Makes things very easy to find. So go to the USA here, and there's Watkins Glen and all of the USA tracks. Absolutely brilliant. So we're going to use the GP track here. And we're going to take out, let's have a look now. We need to go to our formula. cars. And I've gone straight past them. There we are. And there's our Racing USA. So here we are, look. We've got Lolas. We've got Reynard Fords, Reynard Hondas, Mercedes, Toyotas, and Swift Fords as well. We're going to go out in the Honda. All of these cars, although they all look very similar, especially these three here, because they're all the Reynards, so they look pretty much exactly the same apart from the liveries. However, the Lola looks a little bit different in terms of its body, as does the Ford. They all handle slightly differently, and they all are all slightly different. Because look, you've got your Ford here. If you look at the engine power, it's 887 horsepower and 330 foot-pounds of torque. Same for the Reynard Ford there. But then if you go to the Honda, 336 foot-pounds of torque and 903 horsepower. This one here has 872 horsepower. The only thing I find odd, when they released 1.3.1.0, all of those powers were the same. Then they released a small patch to address that, and now all the engine powers and torques are different. But all of the weights and weight distribution for each car is exactly the same. So maybe that's something else that needs updating. Not sure yet. There are certain issues. Oh, and we've got it on rain. We don't really want rain, do we? Kind of want to do this in the dry. Maybe we'll go with rain anyway. But there are a few little issues with the car, or with these cars. And Reza do this. They will release content, and there may be a few little things that need clearing up. But it doesn't bother me, because after a year and a half of owning this sim and knowing Reza, I know that they will patch the hell out of this within about a week, and all of these little things will be cleared up. So, for instance, if you look at the mirrors on this car, on right hand mirror we can see behind us. Let's just pull out into the middle of the, well, we'll say it, but on the left hand side you can see it's pointed, angled down at the floor, so you're just seeing the tarmac, you're not seeing any of the trees or any of the wall behind us. So a little problem there. Or that might be actually to do with oval setup. I don't know. Maybe it's not a problem at all. Anyway, what I have found with this is the clutch is quite heavy. If you don't give it quite a lot of revs, you'll stall it. So, we want about, we're nearly at 10,000 revs there. Stalled it again. You've really got to give these quite a lot of revs to get them off the start line. I've also found that, crikey, look at that. Look at this weather. I've found that first gear in these cars is quite long as well. Because obviously these cars don't do standing starts a lot really, do they? It's mostly rolling starts. This track, by the way, Watkins Glen, is, you can only have standing starts at this track. But what a track. Watkins Glen I'm not all that familiar with. You know, I've driven it in sims, but not a lot. But I'm loving it because it does remind me of the sim that I had the most experience with this track in, and that was NASCAR 2003 by Papyrus. A game that's quite old because it came on a disc, on a CD-ROM. Remember those? Anyway, these cars, straight out of the box on the default setups, feel really, really good. I haven't played with the setups at the moment. Obviously, if you feel they're not quite to your liking, maybe they're too understeery, or something like that, you can play with these things to your heart's content because there's so much to adjust. You know, yeah, sorry about that corner. I wasn't expecting this rain. You've got highly adjustable suspension. You've got centre dampers, centre springs as well. And of course there's the diff you can adjust, loads to play with. but they're so goddamn fast. I mean, the Lola, in 5th, got 6 gears in the Lola, in 5th, you're hitting 200 miles an hour. And you've still got a whole other gear to go. They're ridiculously fast, which is why it's great to pair them with a track like this. I love this track, you know, it's got fantastic cambered corners. And I saw it described earlier on today by someone on the Reason forums. What was it they said now? Watkins Glen is like the Nordschleifer greatest hits. Because it's got great corners just like the Nordschleifer has, but just less of them. You know, things like blind crests, like this corner here. And immediately after, you know, you've got a sharp right-hander. Lots of elevation changes. And the other thing that I've never experienced in any sim ever is this track, but with seasonal foliage. Because, of course, that's another lovely thing about Automobilista 2. We have the seasonal foliage. And it really is quite slippery around here on these wet tyres. And talking of tyres and setups and cambers and things, let's just jump out of the car, go to the replay. One thing I've noticed about this car, if you look closely, you'll notice that you can see negative camber on all 4 wheels. Look at that. That's quite a big thing, because it's been a problem that's plagued AMS2, which is the camber hasn't been showing up properly in replays. And with this car, God, speed of that thing. With this car, you can see the camber on all 4 wheels. There are cars in this sim at the moment where you can see camber on maybe the rear wheels, but never on the front or the other way round. There's been cars that just don't show any camber at all, so the wheels are absolutely dead straight down. But on this car, you can see the negative camber. So does that suggest that they've finally sorted that out with this car, and that we may now see our camber values on all, or negative camber values on all wheels on all cars? That would be nice, wouldn't it? It's just another nice little thing. However, I'm not saying anything's perfect, because what I have found with this car, you know, being able to be set up for ovals as well as road courses, you can of course have positive camber on it, quite a lot of it. And as you can see, my front wheels are set to 1.6 degrees of positive camber, and you can't see that. You could see that they were leaning in. So if I now go for all the way up to -4 degrees of negative camber, and if I click back, the setup should apply. Look at these front wheels here. Look at the angle of that one, for instance. There you go. Nothing's changed. Camber hasn't changed. So even though you can see negative camber on all 4 wheels now, it doesn't actually show you your specific, the specific camber inputs you've given it. Anyway, I would take you for a race around Watkins Glen with the new American Open wheelies, but unfortunately the AI for this particular set of cars isn't quite right yet. Basically, if you try a race here at Watkins Glen, especially if you don't let the AI run some kind of qualifying session and let them get to the end of it, you could basically change the name of Watkins Glen to, let's have a pile up then, because that's what's going to happen. However, doesn't matter, because I've got faith that Reza will do an AI calibration pass and that will be solved. I have taken other cars around Watkins Glen, like the GTEs and the DPIs. They handle it just fine, not a problem. So it's not a problem with the track, it's more to do with that certain car set. Anyway, talking of that car set, hang on, are we on race? Yes. Talking of that car set, let's get back to our new open wheelers. And this time, let's take out the Lola. And we're going to go up here to Cleveland, USA. and we'll put a little qualifying session on so we can just have a look around the track. And we'll have a little race session, just we won't do a full race session, but we'll have a little race session there because the AI with this track and this car, quite a bit better. Now, I've got to say, thank you, Reza, because Reza have introduced me to so many tracks that I never knew before. All of the wonderful, so many Brazilian tracks they've introduced me to, and they're absolutely brilliant. This track from the USA, I have to admit to you, I have no experience of this track at all. Until today, I don't think I've ever driven this track in a sim. And I have to say, this is a track that I'm really going to have to learn to get used to, because you can get lost quite easily on this track. Basically, this track reminds me, it's so flat and so wide, and because it's built on an airstrip, you'll be approaching a corner, but the left, if you go around a left-hander, there's airstrip carrying on in front of you. So you really got to look for the lines and corner markers and everything. Basically, it reminds me of the first time that I ever drove the Tiger Moth track in R-Factor 2. And we've got GTEs on the track as well. How did that happen? Oh, it turns out it's going to be a multi-class race. The first time, the Tiger Moth track in R-Factor 2 is basically the Top Gear test track from the incredibly popular British TV series Top Gear, which is worldwide series now, but this was the Top Gear test track in the British series. Some say Jeremy Clarkson still breaks in occasionally to turn the odd lap. All we know is he's not here at the moment. Anyway, I'm waffling. So I've got a grid penalty for speeding in the pits. So here we go, let's have a look around this track. So you come out of the pits to this first very sharp right-hander, and look at it, it's so wide. And you come back up here, and our corner is over here on the right, and you really have to be looking quite far into the distance to see the corners. You know how some tracks are quite slender, and getting around them, you're almost like a slot car on a Scale Electrics track. They're very easy to follow. This track is a bit. This track reminds me also of Sebring, because there are a couple of corners at Sebring that have off-roads on them, and also corners that are so wide you don't get guided around them easily like you would do if you were on a thinner track. So you really have to plan your line through the corner. You know, it's a bit like, this track's a bit more like drawing freehand rather than drawing by numbers, or painting by numbers, if you see what I mean. Christ, I've got DPIs, I've got Indy cars, and I've got GTEs. How did that happen? I've must have left a multi-class filter on that I forgot to change. But the other reason that this track reminds me of Sebring is because it's quite bumpy. All of these, you've got different areas of tarmac around this track. You can see patches of tarmac, patches of concrete. You can feel them all. And especially at this corner here, very bumpy through here. Look at that. Really quite bumpy. And if we come down this straight here, that you can see there's quite a big dip just here, and another one right here. There's our entrance to the pit lane there. Another little fun thing about this track is that because it's so big and wide, and there's you can drive. Look, I'm going to come off the racing track here. You can drive all around the extra roads around this airstrip here. So for instance, we can come down here, we can see the port over there, but also we can come on to where all the planes and helicopters are parked up. We can drive through, oh, gone off road a bit, drive through the hangars. So it's kind of a bit like an open world track, but also with it being an airstrip, it kind of has a drag strip, because we go up here. This is obviously a runway, so you could have drag races down here. You know how, like in Assetto Corsa, you've got drag tracks. You could have that here. There's only one problem with it, though. I'm going to have to make sure, as there's other cars on the track, we don't smash into them. You could maybe come here with the McLaren F1 and try and get it up to its top speed. But there's just one hindrance that's going to stop you doing that. Halfway down the track here, you've got these tyre barriers. So if Reza gave us the option to take those out, oh, don't hit the Porsche, you could use that as a drag strip, and also, oh, there we go. test your brakes to see if you can brake before running out of runway. Anyway, let's just do a quick couple of laps of race. So what are we doing here? We need to return to the pit box and see what the AI are like around here in a race. Okay, right, so with the wonders of technology and the magic of video editing, I've been able to just quickly jump out of the game and jump back in and get rid of all of those pesky multi-class vehicles. So we've just got our USA cars now. So let's just see what a couple of laps of a race is like here at Cleveland. Here we go. We are on, by the way, we're on full damage, on 200%, so I don't want to be running into anyone because the car will fall to bits. Oh, yeah, we go. Braking hard, braking hard. Okay, are they going to get through? Oh, cutting the corner there a bit on the inside, but most of them through safely. And here we go. I'm wondering what this track looks like at night, because you've got those... all of those crane arms there with all of the floodlights on top. Looking forward to trying this. I will probably do a proper race video here at some point. I'm falling way behind already, and I think the difficulty level is only on about 90%, or no, it's still at 100. Ah, yeah, I'm not so good with the open wheelers. I should have knocked that down to 90. Oh, don't hit the wall! I think this is going to be a track that once I get used to it and really learn my braking zones and get the corners right so I can hit them, hit the apexes, it's going to be a lot of fun to have races here. Those cars look great. Right, this is the one that's hard to get right. Oh, I want to be looking for that more greyish concrete on the inside of the corners there for me, corner markers. Here I've got a cone to look at. If that gets knocked out of the way, that'll I'll lose my corner marker. Gotta be careful around this corner because of the bumps. And yeah, I'm way behind. Let's just quickly see what that looks like on the replay. I mean, look at the size and the width of that track. It's like 2 American freeways. I love the movable objects as well there, the tyres. Rolling around, one's getting carried along by one of the cars. Anyway, I've got to say thank you, Reza, for this lovely content. And like I said earlier, with things like the problems with the AI at Watkins Glen, I have absolute 100% faith that Reza will get that sorted. And I'm looking forward to the third part of Racing USA, which is actually going to bring us oval tracks and Road America, which is one of my favourites. So I hope that's given you a fairly good overview of some of the new content and also some of those subtle little things that have changed. There's so much more I could talk about, but I just simply don't have time, so that'll have to be for another video. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and I'll just leave you with this. If you want this channel to survive, do me a favor and hit subscribe. May seem like a small thing to do, but it enables me to make more videos for you. By hitting that button, you can help us thrive. Subscribe and keep this channel alive. Don't cost nothing, don't take no time. Come on now, keep this channel alive.